All right. Well, it's been an eventful day, huh? Um, I don't have I don't have a ton of details about what happened, but it does appear that noted right wing shitbag Charles Kirk has been uh, has been hit. The Yeah, thank you. The consequences of his actions in it. People have been posting the clip of him saying that we have to accept that there'll be some shootings in order to have strong Second Amendment rights. So I guess that's I guess he's about that life. He is willing to live up to what he is claiming he believes in. Yeah, I don't know. I obviously there's a lot of discourse, a lot of people online talking about how, uh, political violence is never acceptable and all this stuff. And I am not, I am not here to get anybody in trouble. Um, and I am not somebody who necessarily thinks that we should go do political violence. But I also think there are consequences for actions. And a couple of Minnesota lawmakers, specifically close to home, they just got killed slash shot. I didn't hear a lot of political violence is never okay coming from the right wing. So, I don't know. I have a hard time mustering up any sympathy for somebody who has said the sorts of things that Charlie has said. He just, like 2 days ago, was saying that we need to put a lot more people in prison in this country. A country that already has the highest prison population in the world and the highest proportion of its residents in prison. I, I bet there'll be somebody else in prison after this. In fairness, so he got what he wanted. I don't know. I don't feel bad, right? In the sort of abstract, I feel bad that potentially his wife and kids are going to be the ones who suffer because of this. And as a person on the left side of the aisle, I think very possible that this could be weaponized against the left. But in fairness, everything is weaponized against the left, even stuff that never happened or isn't happening. And so I have a hard time being imagine, if you will, that you're getting bullied, right? Every day at school you're getting beat up and he's taking your lunch money. And then one day you go to school and you beat the piss out of one of the bullies, right? It's a group of people that are bullying. You beat the piss out of one of them. Now, are you going to continue getting bullied? Probably. But you already were, right? You were already getting your lunch money taken every day. So how much worse is it going to be? That's the sort of calculus I'm looking at. It's illegal to do, obviously, what was done. It was illegal. It was a crime. And you could even argue that morally it was not good. Although, I like to go back to history on some of this stuff. And people who say political violence or violence is never the answer, these people are morons. not worth listening to. Not to say that violence is always the answer, because I don't believe that. But I will just say, let's think about World War II. All right, let's think about the 1930s. And let's think about the sorts of things that were being said in the 1930s by people who sound a lot like Charlie Kirk and his friends. I'm not making any assertions. I'm just saying that the conversations about, say, immigrants, non-Christians, drug users, homeless people, non-desirables, let's say those conversations are sounding very similar between the 1930s in Germany and modern day America. All right, so let's just say that. Now, what happened in the 30s was people said violence is not the answer. We don't want to get violent because, that'll cause problems. We just had a world war. Here's what we'll do. We'll tell Hitler that he can have Poland. And then he'll stop. Right? Then he'll stop and our problems will be solved with Hitler. We have successfully appeased him. That was the term. Now, I don't know if you know anything about history, but the policy of appeasement has not gone down as historically a good move. The people who were involved with it were not regarded as great, strong, brave leaders who really got it done. What happened was they gave Hitler a long leash and said, you know what, go ahead and take Poland. It's fine. Just don't do anything. Just don't do anything else. And then what happened was he stopped at Poland. He just stopped at Poland, and there was nothing after that. The Second World War, it is a myth. It was just made up, right? It's not real. Here is the problem. One side of the eye, and I firmly believe this about leftists, and my wife is a pacifist. She is it's one of the reasons she's a vegetarian, is because she doesn't believe in violence, even against animals. And I think that's admirable, and I think it's great if you are able to believe that, and if you're able to hold on to that. But the reason there was a World War II is because one side is willing to use violence to get what they want. They don't care. They don't have any interest in following the rules or the norms or debate. They don't care. They will lie. They will happily lie. They will happily take the ostensible moral high ground. But they do not care about the rules because the rules are secondary to their goals. And they will use violence to achieve their goals. I say we broadly, okay? I am on the left. People who are like me, who are on the left, need to be a little bit less sensitive, I think. Because the right wing is willing and has shown a willingness, even in recent years. And I'm not even talking historically. I'm talking about in the last few years. People on the right have shown a willingness to engage in political violence. A guy went to kill Nancy Pelosi with a hammer, right? We remember this. Was there condemnation of that on the right? Or were they making jokes about how actually it was Paul Pelosi's boyfriend? Because I remember a lot of laughing at the elderly man who got beaten almost to death with a hammer. I don't remember a lot of sympathy, right? And look, I don't like the Pelosis. I got no love for fucking Nancy Pelosi. But here's another example, right? In 2020, I assume everybody's seen the video. An elderly man who was a protester, elderly white guy who was a protester during the Black Lives Matter protests, was pushed to the ground and fractured his skull by U.S. I think by police. I think it was by police. Almost killed him, put him in the hospital. I don't remember that guy getting a lot of sympathy from the right wing. I remember fuck around and find out type stuff being said. So they don't care. us on our side of the aisle refraining from getting our hands dirty is maybe morally superior to getting our hands dirty, but they will still commit violence against us, right? They have no qualms. So I think that we should probably reconsider how opposed we are to political violence being done in service of defending people, right? Again, I'm not saying that it should be done. All right, I'm not calling for it. I'm just saying sometimes you cannot protect people without risking your hands getting dirty, right? If somebody is attacking your friend on the street when you guys are out of an evening, if you just say, hey, stop that, that's not kind, your friend is likely going to continue to get beaten, right? Especially if your friend is, say, a member of a protected class, right? And they're being targeted because they're part of a protected class. Maybe they're a queer person. Maybe they are a black person or a Hispanic person. If they're being attacked physically and your response is to just say, hey, cut it out, do you think that you are doing what you need to do in order to protect your friend, your associate, right? By not stepping in, by just allowing it to continue? I'm not saying you necessarily have to take the offense, right? I'm not saying you necessarily have to go beyond stopping the beating, but you might have to intervene physically to stop it. And I think that we would be better served on the left by understanding that context. Now, absolutely, people are going to say horrible, horrible things about leftists. They're going to try to take this and use it as a way to pass laws against leftists or whatever, right? But they're already doing that. I just have a hard time feeling like, oh, guys, we got to be scared about how they're going to use this, because they make stuff up. They make stuff up. They just lie all the time. They lie about various things happening in the world, and then they use those to try and create policy. So, okay, now they've got a real incident. Maybe, right? We don't even know who pulled the trigger. Maybe it was a leftist, right? Or a liberal. Maybe it was a Groyper. Maybe it was a Nick Fuentes fan who thinks that Charlie's not tough enough on specifically Jewish people, right? The Groypers are specific about who they are opposed to. Yeah, I don't know. They say they've got a subject in custody. I'm interested to see if there's any updates about how Charlie's doing. It would be, I think, much worse for the left if this is not a incapacitating sort of thing, because he's just going to do the same shit Trump did, right? And he's going to have this new street cred. But I don't think he deserves it. Let's see, he was shot. Continue without supporting. Very elderly gentleman. So maybe that's, I don't know. I could I could easily see it being somebody who is, if it's an old guy, right? I don't know. Somebody said they saw an old guy getting let out. If it's an old guy, then maybe it's somebody who is ill and isn't worried about the consequences. These things happen. Thoughts and prayers, of course, right? Thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. But I don't feel bad for him. I don't. Let's see. Well, reports seem to indicate. Obviously, I'm trying to keep an eye over here, but I mean, look, our politicians, of course, need to say the right things in order to not be part of the news cycle. But I'm not a politician, and I don't have to say the right thing. So, uh, I think that political violence has a proud tradition in our country, and if only one side recognizes it, they are making a mistake. Anyway, I am going to do a little bit more writing, and I'll keep an eye on the news. Let's see, 2 minutes ago. Classes are canceled. Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. Does make sense to me that you would cancel classes after. I'm not going to show the video. People are saying he is dead, so I'm not going to show a snuff video on my channel. Thank you. But I am going to talk more about Jim, everybody's favorite. But I'm keeping up, right? So social media. Boy, a lot of people saying political violence has no place in our country. It has had a place in our country for a long fucking time. Let me talk to you about the labor movement. Let me talk to you about the civil rights movement, right? Those were a while ago, for the most part. But that was political violence. What about Reconstruction, right? What about the KKK? That's political violence. It's not just assassinations. It's also, I mean, it's lynchings, it's intimidation, it's poll intimidation. There are a lot of things that are violence and that have been done to people throughout the last existence of our country. And nobody is so worried about it, right? Because it's being done by the right to communists or undesirables. Anyway, I'll keep an eye out, see if there's any more to discuss on the Charlie Kirk front. But for now, I'm gonna watch a little bit more of this video, which is so fun.
Fortunately for voters, the disadvantages of these new agreements in the wake of NAFTA are now becoming clear.
Oh, so I did look up all of these agreements, and none of them have been passed, so...
In reality, there are scant benefits for workers and consumers, and the only real supporters of the new agreements are essentially the multinational corporations. The writers of these new agreements must have seen something like this coming, because unlike NAFTA, and indeed unlike almost any other trade legislation, the terms of these agreements were not made freely available for the people to see or to read. Small portions of the TPP, the TTIP, and the TISA have been leaked on the internet, but most of the agreements have not been seen by the public, or even in many cases by the legislators, the Congress people, or the people over in England or wherever, who will ultimately vote on this. In some cases, the agreements have been kept locked in rooms outside the Capitol building that members of Congress have only been allowed to visit without recording devices or materials to take.
Again, TTP or TPP, TTIP, and TISA were all sort of proposed trade agreements. None of them were ratified. None of them were implemented. It's just theories, right? At this point, it's just proposed trade agreements.
Take notes. It's been said that the TPP, the TTIP, and the TISA are like NAFTA on steroids. The amount of trade affected by these agreements is equivalent to 2/3 of the world's gross domestic product. Powers in these agreements give corporations huge new abilities that the writers of NAFTA. Some of these powers allow foreign corporations to sue individual governments if those same governments pass laws that adversely affect their profits in any way.
Jeffco. Jesus.
Hey, this is why Donald Trump is trying to tell you the truth about TPP and what's taking place here, how it's going to affect all the white nations and America. It's nothing but another big NAFTA scam, but about 10 times more powerful and devious. And the controlled Jews news is trying to slander and demonize Trump for telling the truth about almost everything that he says is honest and truthful. They demonize him because he's identifying all these people and what they're up to. Even worse, the suits would not take place in normal government courts, but in special trade courts that would be staffed by corporative attorneys and judges. And the American taxpayers, or the English taxpayers, or the German taxpayers, or whoever on TPP, would be on the hook for negative settlements all the same. As an example, let's say that the TPP allows Vietnam to import shrimp that is practically unhealthy or unsafe to eat by...
Particularly is what that word is, not practically, but also Jim is opposed to people eating shrimp in general, because he is big on biblical food laws, right? So for him, this is specifically like a horrible thing because he hates shrimp. God damn, why is my stream such dog shit? Well, anyway. Someday I will have a job again, and someday I will have wireless in my house again, and I will not have to rely on my mobile hotspot.
Lowering the U.S. food standards for seafood. Consumers lose because some number of them will become ill and suffer the maladies resulting from the substandard food. American shrimp farmers will also lose because the Vietnamese imports will be even cheaper than they were before, making it even more unprofitable to raise shrimp domestically where it might have been marginally viable before. Do you see the jobs going out the window here in all the countries? If the U.S. passes food standard laws that adversely affect the companies selling the shrimp, well, those companies could sue the United States government in the special courts. The only people who stand to benefit are the executive management of a few giant Vietnamese seafood trading companies and the politicians they're lobbying. Can you guess who those politicians are? I showed you pictures of them on the screen just earlier, and many, many more. Mostly they're all Jews. TPP, TTIP, and TISA are some of the first pieces of legislation that the U.S. Congress has not been allowed to examine, far in advance of votes on their ratification. The way the agreements are designed, fast-track authority bills,
I am not paying very close attention to this because this is all bullshit. I mean, potentially if any of these agreements had been signed, there could have been consequences, I suppose. I'm not willing to say that there was nothing bad about the proposals, nothing that could have been harmful to consumers or whatever. But none of these got passed, so it's moot.
The details of the agreements in secret. This means that even members of the U.S. Congress, they cannot read the agreements while they are under negotiation. Yes. Preventing oversight from trade groups and consumer protection organizations that they would normally require. Only when fast-track authority has been granted and negotiation has been finalized, as it has been for the TPP, can Congress then be allowed to examine the details of an agreement and either vote yes or no on it as is, with no ability to make amendments or changes. President Obama wants Congress to vote on TPP after the November elections have taken place. So even those members of Congress who have been defeated in their districts could boast its chances of passage. So it's clear from the way they're designed that these so-called agreements are some of the most extreme pro-corporative pieces of legislation ever devised. There's tremendous rebellion in England at this time against the TPP. Also, it should be in Germany and Sweden, Norway, Finland, Ireland, Scotland. Everyone should be up in arms about this TPP. It is very self-induced, job destructive, lowering the quality of goods and food in favor of slave labor countries. You're being taken to the cleaners out there. I'm revealing truth to you today in the name of Yahweh the Christ.
Here's another thing, right? Not to go back to Charlie Kirk, but here's another thing, right? Every time somebody on the left or who is a Muslim or whatever commits a crime, the right wing starts screaming about how, you know, you need to condemn this. Do you condemn this? Do you condemn this? And why don't they have to condemn? Why don't they have to condemn stuff? I know why. It's because you ask them, like, hey, what about what's going on here? What about this guy? And they're like, oh, he's it's a Democrat plant. It's not a conservative, so we don't have to acknowledge it at all. Interesting, you know. The conclusion does seem to be that he's not going to make it. Well, thoughts and prayers. You know, what else? What else can we say? Right? Oh well. I guess fomenting the sorts of things you're fomenting sometimes happen. Okay, so a kid came up and asked a question about how many trans shooters there were. Then he asked another question, and then somebody shot Charlie Kirk. A shooter fired from a campus building about 200 yards away. So it was somebody who wasn't in the main crowd, looks like. Yeah, you know, I don't have a lot to say. Thoughts and prayers. But yeah, today there was a school shooting as well. All right, back to this shit.
Truth. Fortunately, despite fierce efforts by multinationals to limit reaction and press coverage in the media, opposition to the agreements has been growing steadily in the US, Europe, and Asia. The word is getting out that there's effectively next to zero support for them among consumers and small business. Politicians have been put on notice that to support them is tantamount to writing a resignation letter. But of course, that doesn't apply to Congress members who just lost an election. It's telling that both Republican and Democratic presidential candidates, Trump and Clinton...
So wait, here's a different thing. He's a Christian, right? So if we pray...
expressed their opposition to the agreements. But Hillary Clinton's lukewarm opposition only came after vigorous hammering on the issue by her rival Bernie Sanders in the primaries. In the weeks prior to the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia, the Democrats refused to put TPP opposition in a plank of their party's platform, despite enormous public pressure exerted by Sanders.
Hey, look, Bernie mentioned.
So if we rewind a few years, Hillary Clinton was rumored to have had a hand in actually drafting the TPP personally. And she referred to it as, quote, the gold standard, unquote, among trading agreements, as late as 2012. Both she and Bill Clinton were fully in support of all three agreements until reversing course in 2015 because more truth was coming out about it. President Obama is currently the highest profile booster of the agreements in the United States.
Doesn't look good.
But he's no longer up for election, so he has nothing to lose by promoting them, which he continues to do tirelessly. Another politician in favor of TPP is Republican House Speaker Paul Ryan. He believes that TPP will allow the U.S. to export more goods, the same promise that Bill Clinton made in the early 1990s. Yeah. So you see, it's both sides of the aisle here.
That's right.
It doesn't matter Republican, Democrat, the Jews have them in their pocket. This is what it's all about. The Jew financiers and the Jew investors of multi-millions have these politicians in their pocket, just like they do in Great Britain, Ireland, Scotland, Germany, Sweden, Norway, Finland. Shall we keep going? In all the white nations. Wake up! Presidential candidate Donald Trump knows better, and he's called Ryan's bluff on the issue. Trump has denounced all three agreements, starting with the TPP, calling the agreements, quote, a rape of our country.
All right. We're hearing political responses. Obviously, everybody is being very polite. People are saying he does not look good. I mean, in fairness, we already knew he doesn't look good, but in this sense, like physically, he seems like he might not make it. It'll be interesting to see, like, what left-wing creators have to say. You know, I am not a creator of any note. I have no audience, and I have very little influence. I'm not worried about losing my audience, and I'm also not. I'm not really worried about people getting mad because not very many people pay attention to what I have to say. It'll be interesting to see what people with an audience have to say about this. Person who was taken into custody was not actually the shooter. Okay. Stream is struggling. Wow. Good, they managed to interview a conservative. That's great. I'm sure they are upset. This seems disrespectful. Something went wrong. I mean, true. You can't argue with that. It is true that if you were giving a speech and you got shot, something went wrong. But that feels a little bit callous. Well, famous blue state, Utah.
Rape of the United States of America. He's gone on record as saying the TPP would be the death blow for American manufacturing. It would give up all of our economic leverage to an international commission that would put the interest of foreign countries above our own. It would further open our markets to aggressive currency cheaters. It would make it easier for our trading competitors to ship cheap, subsidized goods into U.S. markets, while allowing foreign countries to continue putting barriers in front of our exports. China especially would be a huge beneficiary of TPP's passage. Perhaps this is why in this election year, TPP at least appears to be dead in the water, with both Obama and Ryan realizing that too many voters are watching politicians on the issue and will keep track of their vote. Ryan recently gave a statement to the press stating as much, saying that TPP wouldn't go through this year because, quote, well, we don't have the votes. Yeah. Well, let me tell you what we have right here now is we have the truth. And know you the truth, and the truth will not only set you free, it will make you free. This is the situation. It's been nothing but lies for the past 60, 70, 80 years, building up on a continual, more ferocious, shall we say, agenda to the white nations. And then also invading them with third world and fourth world mongrels to desocialize, destabilize the country's cultures. They're coming after the white nations now to totally inundate it with not only pollutants of foreign cultures, but now to destroy the industrial base. Wake up! And don't look for any help from your religion in whatever white nation you're in. They're sleeping in bed with the mongrels and the invaders and the Jews who control the finance of your country and the Jews who control the news outlets and with your traitors who sit in high places. Now, unfortunately, as was the case with other corporative giveaway legislation, like the abolition of so-called net neutrality rules for the internet, large corporations and their lobbying firms are virtually certain to revive these agreements from the dead in the future, either under the same names or new names. And if Hillary Clinton becomes president, it's highly likely her opposition to the agreements will weaken or perhaps crumble. Altogether, due to the enormous campaign contributions she's taken from people and entities that would benefit from their passage. This is the Clinton Foundation of corruption, known as the Clinton crime family, just like the Bush crime family. It's telling that in an interview in the last week of July, longtime Clinton friend and Virginia governor Terry McAuliffe said he believed that as president, Hillary Clinton would...
Again, I mean, so this is, you know, this is right before the election. This is August of 2016. So it's not surprising that he's talking a lot about this, but again, TPP never got passed, TTIP never got passed, TISA never got passed, Hillary didn't become president. So not really a meaningful video. Boy, a lot of people saying Charlie's a good guy. I have not seen any evidence of that. I want to get more up-to-date news. You know, Newsweek is not really enough. But people on the internet are saying, as far as they can tell from the video, it is unsurvivable. So we will find out if that's true or not. Probably within the day, I would expect we will know. I mean, I'm refreshing. Right, I'm refreshing to try and figure out what's happening. But thoughts and prayers. All right, back to this video.
Would sign the TPP with some alterations before later recanting his statement. Anyone desiring America to be truly great again should be examining wary of all these trade agreements. Not just America to be great again, all of the white nations of the world to be great again, which benefit very few firms and disadvantage many citizens, weakening the country and strengthening our so-called trading partners. Put out by Mark Patrick's an excellent discussion summary of what is in store at this time with the TTP and the other trade agreements to bring us into a one world money, a one world religion, a one world marketing system. This is what international world Jewry is all about, with international Jewish finance controlled through the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank, which is controlled by world Jews. Truth. I said truth right here. Now, to get into, shall we say, cement this even better, lock it even better, okay? We take a look at all the pictures of the Jews I showed you earlier in the presentation.
Oh yeah, so if you missed it, he showed a slide that had a bunch of pictures of people that he doesn't like, with Stars of David by all of them, and is claiming that it's not a coincidence that all of the people who are pushing for this TPP are Jews. But he cherry-picked that list. He made that list, or somebody else made it, and he stole it. And it's cherry-picked.
Take into account all the other presentations that I gave you on the invasion of the white nations by the third and fourth world savages coming in, raping, looting, plundering, and everything else. Let's go to history, and let's read some history of people and what they had to say to totally, unequivocally prove our point here. Why are the Jews of the world not liked or admired? That's a big question. Well, let us go back into history and find out. For example, George Washington.
Oh, okay. Let's see if this is... see if I can find this article. He maybe, I can't imagine he wrote this, but he maybe took this from a fellow Nazi. Interesting that we're talking about how you're not allowed to do political violence when 130 years ago today a bunch of striking miners were killed by local police. Maybe you don't think that strikes are political, but they are. They are absolutely political. It's not looking good for old Chuck. Of course, I've said it already. I've said it. Thoughts and prayers. Peace and love. Lest anybody think I'm crowing.
Founder of the United States, the Republic. In Maxims of George Washington by A.A. Appleton and Company, Washington said, quote, "They, the Jews, work more effectively against us than the enemy's armies. They are 100 times more dangerous to our liberties and to the great cause we are engaged in. It is much to be lamented that each state long ago has not hunted them down as a pest to society, and the greatest enemies of the white European peoples we have to the happiness of America, or to the other white nations. And for you in Germany, okay? Wilhelm II, German Kaiser. I'm talking to you now, okay? To you Germans, okay? You're not given this in your colleges and universities and high schools. Or by...
See, here's the thing. This is really not very interesting. Like, it's bad, it's offensive, but like, the reality is, there is a long history of anti-Semitism in Europe, in America, even in non like European countries, right? And it's not good, it's not right. We understand now that it's not right. But it was very popular. Like, it doesn't make it acceptable. Just because some people, like, it was very popular to believe that people got sick because of bad air, right? Or bad living. That was very common. But just because a lot of people believe it doesn't mean they're right. Doesn't mean that I should be like, see, it's true that you get diseases from swamp gas, because a lot of people used to believe that you get diseases from swamp gas. just because people used to believe it or used to say it doesn't mean that it is factually true, right? So, yes, a lot of people said a lot of horrible things about Jewish people. That is inarguable. Those people were not right to say those things. And Jim is just saying, see, all these famous old people hated the Jews, so you're right to hate the Jews. But I would say those people were morons, right? I don't respect that stance from them. So I don't agree.
The Jew control news. What did Wilhelm, the German Kaiser Wilhelm II, have to say? A Jew cannot be a true patriot. He is something different. He must be kept apart, out of a place where he can do mischief, even by pogroms, if necessary. The Jews are responsible for Bolshevism, the slaughter in White Russia, and they are responsible in Germany too for the slaughter. I was far too indulgent with them during my reign, and I bitterly regret the favors I showed the prominent Jewish bankers. And who printed this? The source? The Chicago Tribune in the United States, July 2, 1922. Are you Germans listening?
Deseret News is reporting that Charlie Kirk has died. God. All right. Maybe this is the one. Man. Does not seem to be getting picked up or covered yet. If true, again, if true, I'm seeing 8 minutes ago, I'm saying a tweet. But I am seeing several people reporting that it is over. Well, that is going to affect the Charlie Kirk check-ins on RM Brown's channel. All right, we're still not getting an update. I'm gonna keep streaming until we know, I think. I'm probably gonna wrap it up here in a couple minutes, but I'm not seeing that it is confirmed anywhere. All right. Absolutely, this is going to get turned against leftists, but I listen. You guys don't want gun control. I don't know what to tell you. You know, these things happen, innit? One new update. All right, is this the one? Nope. This is not the one. All right, well, my hotspot is about to die, so I'm gonna wrap it up. We'll see what happens. See, it's been an eventful day.